Hello and welcome to the Marcus Coat Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Coat. Welcome to Marcus Coat Fitness Podcast, Jarrad.
Thanks, mate. It's good to be here. I actually just listened to your first podcast and your last podcast, and I'm hoping you still got that funky intro music. I like it.
Yeah, I do, which is cool. It was a very nice. I had a friend who's into like that side of like music production, so he was very kind to be able to hook me up with that. So it's a nice little intro, which is cool.
It is, yeah. It's all about the intro. I find with podcasts, if you get a catchy intro, you get the hooks in people, and then bang, off we go.
That's good to hear. I hope it catches a few eyes for people as well. But yeah, no, thanks for joining me. Another great coach in the industry, and you're doing great things, mate. So I appreciate the opportunity and time for jumping on. But yeah, firstly, how are things going for yourself and the business?
Yeah, it's been an interesting time being down in Melbourne, but really we've actually managed to go from strength to strength, and it's a big wrap to the team I've supported myself with. Being able to lean on them, I was a bit of a solo show for a while, trying to do too much, and I think to really have a successful business, you've got to be able to rely on people. Yep. So the outdoor training that we've been allowed to do with the capacity limits has been really good. Jeff and Jordan, our two young coaches, have really taken charge outside there, and all the coaches have started bringing in their own friends and family and their own networks, athletes that they might play sport with. So as a business owner, that's just an absolute gold mine for you when your coaches start bringing in their own networks. And again, it's not just on your network. So I think with the growth that we'll see from broader networks coming into the gym is going to be great. Keep building to our client list, new clients coming through, new athletes. It's really exciting. Indoors, we're pretty lucky to be doing the AFL off-season work with around 15 or so guys at the moment. Yeah, awesome. So it's great. We're just building a platform for them to launch into pre-season. It varies there with what I do. Some of them let me take full control of their program. Yep. After we build a good relationship, a bit of trust there. Others, I'm just monitoring them on their own programs that the clubs have given them. Especially the young kids, the clubs will have big directions for them with the goals they want them to achieve in the off season. So all I'm doing is just going, yep, good lift, put more weight on, or how did it feel? Going from there. And then the speed project, we've really hit the ground running. I said in one of my little weekly updates I did that we didn't sign a client for around 4 months. Yeah, okay. So the Speed Project's actually a business that we started, my business partner and I, Ash Gudgeon, we started during first lockdown. Yeah. The first one we endured here in Melbourne. You were probably still in Melbourne, weren't you, back then?
Would you say last year?
Would have been last April.
Yeah, so I would have been just started that. So I got the first one.
Yeah, so it was a business that we started purely based on gyms being closed. Yep. We're stuck to doing outdoor training. Well, he was very interested in the space of sprinting and coaching people into proper speed training. And the biggest thing that I saw with athletes, and something that I've been working towards over the last 7 years, is we make our athletes stronger, we make our athletes bigger, we make our athletes fitter. That's all stuff that we can achieve in the gym pretty well. Yeah. But how do we make our athletes quicker? And we know that speed is one of the key attributes to any game, especially field-based games or court-based games that we more tend to see as sports that dominate in Melbourne. So I go, all right, we need to start training our athletes in the context of speed training and proper speed training, not just doing 5 or 10 minutes of drills at the start of a session. and then a couple sprint efforts, because it's some exposure, and we always say some exposure is better than no exposure, but let's do it proper. So we decided to start that, and that's just really gaining legs now. It's really exciting. We're signing different groups everywhere. We've got a cricketer who's a cricket coach who's sending us some of his fast bowling athletes. So we adapt, we do our research and our needs analysis for that. And then we've got a basketball skills coach who's local to the area we're working with here, his athletes, and we do a lot of footballers, we've got a couple of baseballers. So it's great to see that now, something that is still a niche, speed training for the athlete, because sprinters do it so well. Track and field coaches, sprinters, you go and watch them. I watch them at the track and I'm amazed by how they move. They float in the air and they're just hammering the ground, and you're like, oh, this is poetry in motion. And then we watch our field-based athletes run, our footballers, and we go, oh, gee, all right, they're fast, but it's not that effective. And then we go, can we play a part in A, making them faster, and B, making them more efficient, so we reduce any possible risk associated with sprinting. And we know that injuries do happen when sprinting, whether it's fatigue-based or mechanical-based. It's been an interesting space to explore, and it's something that's growing bigger and bigger. So, yeah, things are going pretty well for the predicament that we're in.
No, that's awesome to hear. And credit to you for obviously being able to get that up and running. I know obviously the COVID times, obviously I'm sure that definitely would have played a part in it, but I think obviously that outdoor space for yourself to be able to do the speed project is awesome. So yeah, I know it's definitely going to keep building for yourself. So that's really awesome to hear. I suppose with all the different athletes, is it when they do come, I suppose, is it more like a bit of testing and then obviously assessment kind of when they do come to look at, I suppose, their sprint mechanics as well?
Yeah, so with the speed project, we tend to do a testing battery our first day. We do a lot of film, so we can do film analysis, and we compare them to a technical model that we've designed based off other coaches and other businesses, and based off we see that's going to be more a beneficial way to explain sprinting to field-based athletes. And that's primarily what we're doing. We're not saying, hey, here's a technical model, you must run like this, because we know that most people are going to achieve things differently. Some people like to squat one way, some people squat another way, toes in, toes out, knees in, knees out, full depth, half depth. It's all the same thing in reality. So we do our testing. We test 60-meter sprints, and we have timing gates. We get their times from 0 to 10 in every 10-meter increment up to 60. And that'll give us an indication of their acceleration and the positions they hit during acceleration, and then their max velocity as well. So the positions and the timing of their top end speed. From there, we sit down and we go through an analysis with them, so we can kind of help them understand the way they run, why they run the way they run, and the little changes that are going to happen over time so they become faster. And if we can get someone, like I keep trying to do the math on this, but over 10 meters, if we can get someone 0.2 of a second faster, and you think about that and you go 0.2 of a second is nothing. And then you put it onto field-based context, 0.2 of a second over 10 meters works out to be actually a significant distance.
That's right.
And if we look at a guy like, say, Harry Mackay, for example, if we can make Harry Mackay 0.2 of a second quicker over 10 meters, and he's just a little bit more in front of somebody, then try to stop that man when he's in front of you. It's very hard. So, speed is one of those things that if you have it, all right, get better at it. And if you don't have it, it's a trainable thing. So train for it. And that's how we've kind of designed that. We've also built that into testing multi-directional tests. So change of direction stuff. We use the 505 at the moment. Gives us a good acceleration, deceleration, re-acceleration testing for that as well. And then we continue to explore and see what we can do further in the space, but mostly we try to work on linear sprinting mechanics. If we can get someone running in a straight line better, then the rest of things, what we try and achieve, will start falling into place slowly.
No, that's really cool to hear, and it's awesome to see as well. And I know you touched on about like that relationship about before, but I think building that relationship with the person is definitely key. I know in the industry as well, and part of your job, but even for them to be able for you to be able to show them like how they run, and to maybe little things that you can work on at the same time is definitely a big part of it as well.
Yeah, and we're quite lucky where we can sell a holistic product of, all right, let's go down to the track and work on our speed. I'm very lucky the track's 400 meters away from the gym I'm in.
Yeah.
And then I say also, let's look after your strength program too.
Yeah.
Come into the gym so that instead of seeing our athletes twice a week, I might be doing, or our coaches may be doing 4 to 5 sessions a week with our athletes, which is a luxury. And that's something that we've found that's really difficult, especially with school kids. Is that once they're at school and they've got school football training, if they're playing first football or first basketball, and they're probably at NAB league as well. So they've got NAB training. And then they're probably, if they're really good, they're at Vic Metro or some kind of reps team that for their sport. So they might be training 4 to 5 times a week for their sport. And you go, unless they're getting gym at their program, when are they fitting time in to come to the gym and then also study year 11, year 12? And you go, oh, it makes it hard. So being able to mesh the programs into each other and, all right, let's spend an hour at the track, then come to the gym for an hour as well. It seemed to work really well.
Yeah, that's an awesome approach, and I think it will definitely work, and that's really cool. I suppose that's a little bit, I was just going to touch on, I suppose, your journey now a little bit. I suppose that's a bit maybe to start, or I suppose towards a little bit of the end, but I suppose I wanted to touch on your starting your journey and growing up, and I suppose how you got into the industry yourself as well.
It's always interesting how coaches come into the industry, and it's probably a very similar line. Love sport when I grew up. I listened to your first podcast and you were pretty much the same. I wasn't that into school. I wasn't that into structured learning. At school, if we were learning about a topic that had no interest in me, I'd sit there and go, well, other than a bit of general knowledge, which if I want to seek general knowledge, I'll do so myself. Like there's Google, there's books, I can do this myself. I don't want to be spending time that's allocated to learning about algebra. Like mathematics is something, and it's funny with mathematics because I use it a lot in my job now. Trying to work out velocities or trying to work out loads and all these things. But I dropped maths in year 11, just going, there's no point of doing maths. And I was doing German in year 11 and I was doing English literature in year 11. And I've just gone, you know, well, there's no point in me doing German because I'm not going to go and live in Germany. And English lit, I liked reading books, but other than it being a hobby when I get older, it's probably not something that's going to be significant towards me. I was probably a little bit of the mindset that AFL was my dream. And I'm probably much like many kids that grow up with a football in their hands and play football every weekend. When I realized that wasn't probably going to happen for me, I tore an ACL when I was 18, and the rehab side of it really interested me. I was doing rehab with a physio, and I was going to physio 2-3 times a week, and they were saying, well, you're coming to physio too much. And I was just like, I just like being here. I like learning. I'm really interested in my journey. I'm happy to come here and pay you X amount of dollars and sit on a bike and ride. so that happened. Then I started working with a personal trainer I was a swimming teacher, and they had a gym upstairs, and I worked with a personal trainer, and he'd done an ACL as well. And so he was showing me some things around training, strength training, because my idea of strength training before that was, all right, let's go and bench. And at 17, I was hitting 100 kilos on the bench, and I'm 29 now, and I probably put on 17.5 to 20 kilos in my bench in that's 12 years. It's not a very good increase. So all I did when I was younger, and my friends and I, we do a little bit of legs, but we'd be like, oh, let's just do the upper body, make the upper body look good. We didn't really have that education behind it.
That's it.
So I got back to playing footy, and I ended up doing another ACL. I did my opposite side. I was at uni at the time studying sports science, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with sports science. It's one of those broad degrees, right? And I say this to any young kid who messages me and asks me about this question that's still at uni, or what should I do, or how do I get into this? And I say, it'll come. Sports science is one of those degrees where you see there's a part of people break off into allied health fields, and they go into exercise physiology, they go into physio, they might go into osteo. There's some fellas that I went to uni with that have gone down the research pathway. And there's a bloke that he's over in Sweden now working with the Swedish national team. And he was in research for a very long time and floating around professional sports for a bit. And now he's over in Sweden, loving life. I follow him often with what he's doing, and I go, wow, this is pretty cool. And he'd done all this off the back of being involved in the university system for another probably 6-8 years after studying, doing his master's, doing what do they call those things? What the smart people do?
PhD, is it? No,
yes, PhD, that's the one. See, that's something that I probably won't be going towards. But and then you get some people who go down, they start personal training, and then they go in the S&C. There's others who go into professional sports. And I was umming and ahhing going, oh, what do I want to do? And when I did my second ACL, I actually saw Woodford Sports Science Consulting pop up. And I was in the area, and it intrigued me, this athletic development gym. And so I sent a message saying, hey, I'm interested in whatever you got. And they were doing their pilot mentorship program. It was 10 weeks. 10 weeks every Friday evening with Christian. And I'd go there. I'd sometimes even walk there from my house. That's how close I lived. I'd walk there, and you just sit and listen to this bloke who's passionate about the industry, talk about his methods that he's developed over time, and training for different adaptations and everything. And that started to get the ball rolling. I started training under Jay Ellis. And you know what? A lot of very intelligent coaches always say, and Jason Stupas is a massive advocate for this, they always say, hire a coach. And I know that you have a coach yourself. I am a terrible example of a coach. I don't have a coach myself. My last coach was probably Jay Ellis all those years ago. And I've just really used mentors since then. But picking Jay's brain, and I realized, okay, now I know what I want to do. I understand my journey now is I want to be in strength and conditioning. I want to be helping people either not get injured, or helping those who did get injured and getting them back to playing sport. Because in my mind, I'm going to play sport until I break. I still play football, and I get asked this question from my friends, family, clients all the time. They go, you still play footy? I go, yeah. And they're like, oh, I thought you quit years ago. I said, no, I've been playing pretty much every year. I've actually played more games other than COVID. I played more games in the last 3 years than I did from 18 to 21 because of 2 ACL recos, and I had another injury, and I had quite a few injuries. I was a bit unlucky there, but I realized, all right, this is what I want to do. I'm going to finish my uni degree. It took me a long time to finish my uni degree. I kind of went part-time. I deferred a year. I moved up to Mildura and God knows what I did up there. I don't know if you've ever been to Mildura. It's quite barren and hot.
Yeah, I've been up there.
Yeah, yeah. So I actually went up there to play footy, but that didn't really work out. So I did my knee. Anyway, so I've realised, okay, this is my career. I got a shot at Woodfords. I coached there. But the whole time, I actually started out, I kitted my mum's garage out with, I put a squat rack in there. I got a barbell. And just from what I was learning at the time at uni and what I was learning through WSSC and what I was looking at on YouTube and listening to things and watching things, I just go, I'm going to start coaching people. I don't know what I'm doing for exactly, but I'm going to put together a program template. And I'll have moments of reflection and I'll look back at those program templates. And it makes me laugh because I go, oh, gee whiz. Like I had no clue. The only thing in my mind was everything's always about slight overload, just really slight overload as we go. And then we'll eventually.
I find it funny looking back at old things that you've written before. It's quite interesting some of the time.
Yeah, and I'd only have one column for load. Yeah. So if we were hitting 3x8 or 3x10, I just write really small, 40, then 42.5 and 45. And I was like, as long as they're lifting a little more weight all the time and it looks good, I think I'm doing a good job. So really I had absolutely no idea. It was very much a learning experience. And I was just coaching boys that I was involved with through football coaching. I started coaching a few of my mates. Yeah. And then eventually the ball started rolling and I realized, okay, I was a swimming coach from 18. So coaching was kind of what I was doing at the time. And that's all I've ever done since I left school. So I started going, all right, I'm going to find some really good athletes. I'm just going to do my research. I'm going to find some of the best footballers in this area and I'm just going to message them and say, hey, I want to train you until you go and play AFL. Like, pump up their tires. And that was my plan. And I had one of my best mates, Jarrad Lyons, who's he's up kicking goals in Brisbane now, who's turned into an unbelievable player. He had a younger brother. And his younger brother was 16 at the time, Corey. And Corey started training with me, and then Corey brought a mate in, and that was Cam, and then Cam brought a mate in, and then Jack Scrimshaw came in, and then I was training Jack Higgins and Bailey Smith, and I was training all these kids, and I'm like, I watch them play football, and I go, whoa, these kids can play football. Like I saw some good footballers growing up, but I was just like, these kids are stars at football. So my name started to get out there just by the ilk of who I was coaching, and then it started to grow even more. And then eventually I decided, all right, I'm going to go into my masters. I was doing masters in S&C, and that actually took me, embarrassing to say, but it took me nearly 5 years to do 9 units of my masters. They told me, I think it was in I think they were being jovial about it, but they told me I was one of the longest students to ever complete it. I actually had to apply for special consideration to go back into my master's because they're like, oh, you've left it too long. I go, oh, damn. All right. But they did. They let me back. I finished that just recently. I just got my diploma. I just got my uni transcript testimony. I'll give that to my grandmother to get framed for me. She loves framing things for me, so that would be my Christmas present. And 3 years ago, I opened up the sixth principle when I realised that I like working for myself. Not that I can't follow instructions and rules. I just really like the idea of being at my own, I guess, demise as well as my own success and trying to build something for myself. I started the sixth principle 3 years ago, and I went full-time here because I had a job in the city, Absolute Health and Performance, which was very different to what I was doing at Woodfords and what I was doing myself. That job was one-on-one personal training for there's a higher end clientele because we were in the city. The prices were jaw dropping to me. I was like, I've never charged this before when I went there.
Yeah.
And it was fixing broken bodies, which was a cool challenge because all I really ever worked with was athletes and doing a lot of rehab, a lot of ACL rehab. I'd never worked with a 40 to 50-year-old adult who hasn't trained for 10 years. So it was a new challenge for me. I think it really was for the betterment of myself and my coaching and being around an allied health team. They had sports docs there, they had physios, they had osteos. That's where I met my business partner, Ash. He's an osteo. We had S&C coaches and nutritionists and coaches there who had come from different, well, there's a guy from Scotland there. Jeez. I better get that right. Yeah, he's Scottish. Yep. And there was just coaches from all different walks of life, which was really interesting to learn and see how people did things. And when COVID hit, I decided, all right, it's time to really invest in myself. Let's do this, which was scary. And you've probably been through this yourself when you go, all right, it's time to back myself in and open my own thing and just fully jump in and go, I'm doing this. If I sink, if I swim, it's on me. It's on the team I build. And thankfully the team that I've got around me are exceptional and things are starting to build. So it's exciting.
That's awesome. Incredible journey there, Jarrad. I love hearing coaches' journeys and what pathways they do take. It's awesome. And I know young coaches or people that are getting into the industry, I think it's a good way to kind of figure out where you want to go. I know sometimes there's lots of hurdles to go before you can get there, but figure out where I suppose the end goal a little bit for you as well is. And I know touching on how you said allied health performance there. Do you think like doing that was a great experience and like challenging for you to be able to learn, I know, different ways? Do you think like that was an awesome opportunity for you to be able to be part of that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's important to realize that as a coach, you will always have a bias. And I have a bias as a coach and the way I do things.
Yeah.
So it was great to work with a team that either you'd get a referral from the sports doc and maybe the sports doc would refer down to one of the physios or the osteos first. They would do their thing with them. They would do that early stage rehab. And then they would hand off to you to do the mid to late stage rehab. And you'd sit there and have conversations with the physio and the osteo about what's the best way we can achieve this. And I feel working with general pop clientele is a little bit different to working with athletes.
Yeah.
Athletes, at times they tend to just bounce back. Like injuries for them is a part of life that happens. We know we play sport. That's the dangers that are involved in sport.
Yeah.
And a lot of the clientele I'd worked with were under the age of 30. So getting back to sport was always good. Some of the clients I was working with at Absolute had come from really traumatic injuries, or they were dealing with chronic pain. So new challenges where I couldn't just bang together a program and expect them to be able to complete it. We had to adapt. And that was something I really enjoyed, having to adapt on the gym floor constantly, or even just monitoring their everyday lives. Like some of them were working in really high pressure jobs.
Yeah.
And they'd come in and you could actually see the strain on their face when they walked in. Like, oh, they've had a bad day. A lot of them were lawyers.
Yeah.
So they dealt with some pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And then they came in and you get this when you work with people for so long, but you can tell, all right, I need to totally change tact here. What I was going to plan for them isn't going to be good for them today. We need to adjust. And I think as well as some of the challenges where the physio or osteo would challenge you and challenge your, programming, which was great. And that asked you to justify what you you programmed.
Yeah.
And it's always good. And that's what I say to my coaches. That's what I say to the internship students we get. We get a lot of uni students that apply, and we've just started putting together a internship program here, a mentorship program that Patty and Josh, our two senior coaches, are heading up. And I always say to them, your ability to justify your exercise selection and your programming to yourself is probably the main thing, but as well as you want to be able to justify it to the client. If the client turns around to you and goes, why am I doing this? And you stand there and go, because this is the way I train everybody, or you think, because this is what I think's best, and they go, I'm not enjoying this. And that happened to me at Absolute. Clients would ask me the question, why am I doing this? And I said, oh, we're doing this to build some lower body strength and build some capacity to go into this. And they go, I don't care about that. And I would just stand there and go, fair enough. All right. Like there's a place where you've got to educate your client, but there's also a place where the client's paying you. And sometimes you have to be able to remove your bias of what you think is right and what you think is correct, and make it more suitable to their needs, make it more suitable to what they want to do, without, of course, going against your coaching philosophy. So yeah, it's the allied health thing is interesting because I really want to have an allied health arm to the Six Principle business. It's something that is on the forefront of my mind at the moment, meshing everything together, like meshing the Speed Project, allied health, and the Six Principle together. One day opening up a mega factory, and it's all on the cusp. It's future endeavors.
No, that's it. And I think it's a great skill to be able to have, and then to be able to learn that, I think is big, and for coaches and everything, to be able to learn that skill. Even when you spoke about, like, I think about adjusting it on the fly sometimes. Like I think a big one for me is like, obviously you'll see the client come in or athlete come in, you kind of I suppose it will take time to build that relationship, but I suppose you can see their body language, how they're feeling, how they're speaking to you at the same time. So you think like, maybe the program that I've written today is probably not suitable for them at the time. And I think it's just trying to be able to adjust and understand them, or how their day's been, or things that are going on for them during that week as well.
Yeah, that's a key skill as a coach, adaptability. And all the coaches that we have here, that is one of the major things that plays a role in them being successful at getting a job. Their ability to adapt, because we'll have school kids come in and they'll come in with their hand in a sling, and we go, mate, what happened? Oh yeah, I hurt myself at school yesterday. Why don't you tell us? Like, you gotta tell us. We want to know this kind of stuff. We want to look after you, as well as we want to be able to give you a suitable program when you come in, because we run a semi-private model here, and you get a kid walking in with his arm in a sling, and you go, oh gee, I'm going to have to quickly have to write him up something new, take out all his bilateral upper body stuff, and go from there. So yeah, adaptability as a coach is really important, as well as I give credit to Jamie for putting me onto this a while ago. We don't really prescribe loads anymore, much the same as Jamie, his coaching model. We prescribe RPE-based training. And sometimes we use rep ranges as well, especially with novices. We go, oh, I don't know what your strength capacities are. I don't know how you're necessarily going to move this weight. I know that you can do it because I've watched you do it, and I've seen you do it effectively. So I want you to do 8 to 12 reps at this weight, but I want you to have a few reps left in the tank at the end. So let's say we explain our RPE-based training to them. Let's say it's an RPE 6 to 7. So you should have 3 to 4 reps left at 8 to 12 reps. So they get to 12 and they go, oh, Jarrad, could have done 10 more. And you go, oh, I undershot here. Put some more load on the bar. And then, but sometimes you get people, and the best thing about the RPE-based training is it doesn't have to be linear in load. Which is like when I look at my first programs, I was always like, linear load, or sometimes let's increase reps, either volume or load. What are we going to do? 3 by 8 one week, 3 by 10 the next week. Sometimes you look at programs and you explain this to your athletes. You go, you don't have to lift heavier than last week.
Yeah.
All right. Just because the program says 3 by 6 and last week it said 3 by 6 and last week you did 100. If you're feeling sore, if your training last night was really heavy or you got a poor sleep, lift to how you feel, because that's going to be better for you and that's going to be more effective. So it might be 90 kilos this week. And to educate people about that is really important, because then we see a more, I guess, sustainable training model for them. And they're not always banging their head against the wall going, I need more load because that's going to get me stronger.
That's exactly right. And I know even for some people, it's like wanting to progress each week, like, which is like fine, but then some weeks you might just have a little bit of that plateau kind of thing there. And as I said, I think it's just education for them to understand, look, like, you've lifted this week and you haven't got it this week. That's okay. Like, we'll keep going, like, we'll keep improving, but just at some stage, like, we'll go up kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's just for them to understand that, like, you're not going to, like, each week is going to, like, be tough sometimes as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going on to now, I suppose, a bit of the 6 principle. I know we spoke a little bit about it then, but yeah, I'd just love to hear, like, I suppose, something that you obviously always wanted to do, I suppose, start your own gym. And yeah, I'll definitely also love to touch on the little, I know you working a lot with the AFL guys too, and I've seen a bit of that clip. Was unreal for the last summer. I think I'd like to touch on that as well for you as well.
Yeah, the 6 principle. So the funny thing is, a lot of people ask me about the name. They think the name's cool, and that's what I wanted the name to be cool.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want it to be named after me, first off, because you hear a lot of the people in the industry, one of the things they say is, I wish I didn't name my gym after me, because then everyone who walks in expects me to be there.
Yeah.
So I wanted it to be a